Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to Know This Live. I'm Zinclea Samoa. Today, the Senate passed President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief plan. Joining me now to discuss this and so much more is the White House's Deputy Press Secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi there. Happy Friday, and thank you for having me.
Happy Friday, and I want to jump right in on this end-of-week Friday. I know the big news of the day has been the American Rescue Plan. President Biden outlined this agenda. We saw Vice President Harris host a roundtable with Black business leaders. What are the top-line takeaways that Americans need to know about this COVID relief plan?
Yeah, so first of all, today was also Job Numbers Day, right? We got a sense of the job growth for the day, and the disappointing thing about that is we have seen job growth stall not only this month, but the last 3 months. And the reason I bring that up, it really plays into the importance of why we need the American Rescue Plan, why we need to go big, and why we need to meet this moment, because the American people are suffering. They have lost jobs. People across the country, millions of folks have lost jobs. If you look at the numbers, more than 10 million people have lost jobs since the beginning of the COVID crisis. In the last 4 months, or the last 6 months, I should say, or even more, you had 4 million people who've been out of a job. And so these are stark numbers. We are in a precarious situation, an unprecedented situation. And so we need the American Rescue Plan to be really passed and put out there so that American people could get relief. And what we're talking about is, making sure that people can apply for unemployment benefit insurance, making sure that people can pay their rent. We have people right now who cannot pay their rent. They cannot pay their mortgage because of this compounding crises, these two crises that we have, which is the economic crisis and also COVID. We're losing thousands of people to COVID every day. Tens of millions of Americans have COVID cases. And so we have to act now. And this is what President Biden has been talking since day one of his administration, leading, signing executive actions, pushing out bills like the American Rescue Plan to meet this moment, to give relief to the American people.
Yeah, and you touched on a number of different things that I want to get to. The first being, of course, the job loss numbers or the job gains that we saw. They were modest. Those numbers told us 49,000 jobs were gained. Tell us about what this plan does to extend unemployment benefits for the unemployed, especially given how many people we know are struggling right now.
And you're right on, because those benefits are going to expire in March, right? We are right now in February. So we do not have a lot of time. That's why President Biden talks about, and Vice President Harris talks about all the time, we have to move swiftly and we have to act now. We have to make sure that we give people what they need to make sure that they can get that unemployment benefit insurance, and make sure that they have the moratoriums out there so that they can be protected in this moment that we're in. And here's the thing as well, this bill, this American Rescue Plan, has bipartisan support from across the country, from both Republicans and Democrats. The American public are saying they want this bill, and we have to make sure that we keep our promise to the American public of making folks whole and getting that $2,000 check that we promised that we would get them. Right, that's a mandate that we have, that President Biden has in his administration, and so that's that $1,400 that we have to continue to make sure to push forward. And we're not going to move on that. He's not going to move on that either. And so you have this economic component of the bill, and also COVID, right? We need money to make sure the schools are open, and not just when they open, they need to stay open. And that means that comes along with mask wearing, social distancing, having ventilation in schools, making sure that we have smaller classrooms because of this pandemic that we're living in. And so there's so many things in this bill that is so critical. And also, we have to make sure those public servants that have put their lives on the line, we're talking about police officers, firefighters, paramedics, teachers, they have this fund. This bill also gives them funding, to make sure that we have hundreds of thousands of those public servants can keep their jobs. So that's critical as well, and we have to move forward with this.
Yeah, and it's clear that one of the Biden administration's priorities is to reopen schools. You referenced that. What does a national vaccination program entail practically, especially since we haven't seen that level of federal intervention thus far?
Yeah, and that's such a good point. You know, the last administration did not leave or did not have a comprehensive vaccination strategy. And so what we saw the first week of Biden's administration is he put out a comprehensive, strategic vaccination strategy that dealt with the issues that governors and local elected officials were dealing with. And that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we don't leave those leaders behind and that we work together in making sure that we have vaccinators out there, that we have vaccination centers out there. We just announced that we're going to give about 1 million doses to pharmacies, because one of the things that we're seeing is we have to make sure that we reach out to communities that are not in populated areas so that they can get vaccinated. And so we're hoping that the plan that we put together actually does that. And one of the promises that President Biden made was he was going to get 100 million doses in 100 days. And that's just the beginning, right? That's just a goal that's already ambitious, that we wanted to put out a metric for the American people so that we are accountable for what we're trying to deliver. So this is critical because in order to get back to normal, we must be able to get people vaccinated. That's the way we're going to do this. They need to wear a mask, continue to wear masks, and to continue to social distance, but we got to get folks vaccinated as well.
And you reference a lot of big numbers, right? 100 million vaccinations, $1.9 trillion relief.
Yeah.
I think some critics of this say, okay, isn't this a lot of money up front, especially when we're wary of a recession that could be on the horizon? What do you say to that critique?
I'll say this. Last week, 30 million people said that they reported that they could not put food on their table. They didn't have enough money to eat. 30 million people in this country alone. We had nearly 1 million folks who signed up for unemployment benefits. So this cannot be. This is where we are at this country. And I said this already. We have thousands of people dying of COVID every day. We have to meet this moment. This is a big moment. And because this is a big critical moment, we need a big relief package for the American people. And so this is where we are. And so this is what President Biden is doing. He's acting. He's keeping his promises because he has a mandate to act. And so this is where we are today. So, and like I said, it has bipartisan support. And I'm talking about economists from the last 4 presidents have said this is a good bill. We have support from Bernie Sanders to the Chamber of Commerce. We have Republicans who have said, we need to get that $2,000 relief. And so we have heard from across the aisle, and we need to act. And most importantly, we have heard from the American people.
And I'm hearing some strong bipartisan messaging from you. I'm mindful that at the press conference, President Biden did speak in some tough terms, right? Saying Republicans seem to have rediscovered fiscal restraint, saying, I want to work together, but if not, we will push through. How does the administration grapple with that and the constant message of unity that you all are trying to bring forward?
Yeah, one thing we know about President Biden, you look at his history, he has worked with Republicans to get big things done. This is his record. This is who he is. And this is how he would like to move this package. Like I said, this package from the American people have bipartisan support. So we should get bipartisan support in Congress. But he understands that there's no time to waste. Like, we cannot wait. We were just talking about, benefits that are going to run out in March, a month from now. So he understands that we have to act, and we cannot sit tight and wait, for the other side to come around. We cannot. And so this is what the message that he was trying to say very loud and clear today, which is like, you know what? We have to act for the American people. That's our mandate. This is what we promised we were going to do, and we're going to move forward and do that.
And we've talked a lot about the impact of COVID-19. I'm mindful that it has disproportionately affected the Black community and Black businesses. We know that about 50% of Black businesses are expected to have closed by the end of this pandemic. What is the administration doing to address this disparity during this recovery to make sure it doesn't remain, both for businesses but also for the Black community as a whole?
Yeah, and even in the jobs numbers that we saw today, people of color are, disproportionately as well. They're, when it comes to unemployment, that number is so high, and so we see that in so many of the different kind of the different areas. So President Biden has been very clear when it comes to COVID, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to all of the big policies that he's trying to push through. Equity is at the center of that. It's very important to have that we put that in the center, because like you just said, there's such disproportionate numbers of people of color who are being affected. And so he's done that by having a COVID task force and making sure there's equity component of that. And so making sure that even in this economic plan that you see that it takes care of people of color, of people, who need it, who are really suffering. And so equity is at the center of this. It will continue to be at the center of this. We are mindful and clear about that. And you see that in his executive actions that he's taken in the last week and a half. And you see it in this American Rescue Plan as well.
Yes, and I know that Vice President Harris said during her roundtable today that at least $1 trillion of this funding is going to be focused on families. And we know, you referenced it even, that a lot of families have been facing eviction. So what practically does this look like, especially considering what so many American families are facing?
Yeah, I think one of that is the $1,400 check that Americans will get. So we have to remember that the bill that was passed in December, that was just a down payment. That was a backfill to the last 6 months of 2020. And we need to continue to build on that. And this is what this bill does. It kind of makes things whole and make sure that people have what they need to move forward. When we're talking about being able to, put food on your table, when you're talking about being able to put your kids back to school in a safe environment, when you're talking about childcare, tax credit, when you're talking about the things that, that really matter to people who are in need. And so this is what this is going to do. This is critical. We need to make sure that we continue to focus on the American people.
And, we've talked about focusing on the American people. We've talked about the $2,000 stimulus. What is it realistic to push for an increase in minimum wage, which I know the Biden administration has really wanted to do, when there are so many job losses, when there is this push also for this stimulus check? What do you say?
I think when you look at these job numbers today, you have to look at that and say, okay, we need to have a minimum wage. People have to have an affordable wage so that they can live on. And so that is something that President Biden has said for a long time. He believes that we need to increase the minimum wage, give people a real opportunity and a real chance. And so he's going to continue to fight for it. He's going to continue to work with Congress to make this happen. This is a big priority for him because he understands what that means economically, what that means to job wages, what that means to folks in this job market.
Yeah, and outside of your role with the White House, I know that you're also an author. You're the author of the book Moving Forward.
Yes.
And, I know that you've even done a video with us at NowThis about why naturalized citizens should get involved in politics. So I wonder, in this COVID pandemic environment, when so much has gone remote, when so much is virtual, how are you personally, but also as the administration, making sure people, and I'm thinking of young people and a diverse array of people, are staying involved and staying engaged?
Well, we keep communicating. Like, this is a form that we're doing right here, a form of communicating with people. We do virtual events. You just talked about the Vice President Harris doing an event today. And we just try to make sure that we try to keep in touch as much as possible, whether it's social media, whether it's doing a virtual event, whether it's doing local media or going on TV. I mean, that is one way that we're constantly communicating with folks and pushing our message out there. It's so critical and so important. And you're right, it is incredibly difficult to do this while we're masked up, socially distanced, not able to go into our offices or to go into our schools or to go into places where we can be together. And and so we recognize that. And so we're trying to be incredibly creative, trying to think outside the box to continue to have these really important conversations, just like you and I are having. My hope is that a lot of people are going to watch this and hear what the administration is doing, hear what President Biden wants to do for the American people.
Well, I know a lot of people are tuning in today, so I want to say thank you to you, Ms. Jean-Pierre, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. You can keep watching all of our content here. Thanks for watching Know This Live. I'm Zinklaya Samoa.